And you can move around just like a normal laptop. Okay. I'm going to, before you do anything, I'm going to give you this information right here. I just wrote up. And I think I have a pen. Oh. Okay. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, Alison. What we're doing today is a usability test. And let me give you a little bit of a background about the project, the concept, and why you're here. And basically, we are building an app for the FDA for food recall. And the project is pretty wide open. Basically, what you want to do is I had created a persona called the Ann Jordan, basically you, or but this persona is taking on a role of a mother of two, and that person also is very interested in the food sources that she is buying from her area, and she wants to be able to use an application to go and get alerts or to find out what are the recalls within the area, and to be able to basically build her recipes or meals around food that is not contaminated, if you will. So that's really like the high-level concept of this application that we're building. And so if you don't mind, go ahead and read the persona that we had created right here. It said, as a mom, or I can go ahead and read it so we can have it documented.
You see how far I'm holding it out from my face.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go ahead and record this session on GoToMeeting too as well, so we have another source of the meeting.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and read it out loud if you don't mind.
Okay. As a mom, I want to ensure that the food and beverage products that I'm feeding my children are not contaminated in any way by quickly accessing open or closed products from the FDA food recall list, so I can ensure I'm not buying or eating recalled products.
Okay, great. So that's a very high-level kind of description, not from me, but also from the product owner. And so from there, we basically started our process of building this application. So what I'm going to do is kind of give you a little bit of instruction about the testing methodology. I'm going to you have the same sets of questionnaires I do. Mm-hmm. I'm going to, the questions are very specific so that it doesn't mislead you in any way. So I'm going to be asking you some questions as we go along, and we're going to record your answers. How do you feel about the product, if it achieved what you think what this product can do, or this application can do for your persona, what you're looking for in terms of food recall. And so, I can't give you a lot of information because I want you to be able to navigate or find out whether or not this application, meet or exceed or underperform what you were thinking of doing. Okay, so I already opened up the application for you, but basically this is normally a link from the FDA or some other sources that go to that. So the first thing I want you to do is just review the page that you're on and the app that you're on, and describe what is expected of your action. I think we had. I'm sorry. I know we're missing a screen. There we go. Okay, I think it might have been updated by our other UX person working on this as well. So this is the landing screen as you come into the application. So basically, what I want you to describe what is expected of your action as you enter the app for the first time.
So I'm always reluctant to provide my email address. To have that be the first thing that comes up on screen for me, I will very often opt out of participating.
Good feedback.
So there's no option for me to opt out, as I can see it. I either cancel, which I assume is going to take me completely out of the site, or I have to subscribe to the alerts.
Okay.
So you might want to give somebody the option of not providing their email address. If that's what the cancel button means, it's not clear to me.
Perfect. Okay, why don't you go ahead and do what you think is your natural next move would be. If you don't mind, what we call this technique is like think out loud.
Mm-hmm.
So every action that you do, even the hitting the X button there, what was your expectations and so forth?
So I didn't know whether the box was just going to go away or whether it would take me off of their site completely.
Right.
But I took a chance. So what I'm struggling with now is that I use a Mac and this is a Dell.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to remember how to sort of scroll around this screen.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to my state, which is Virginia, because that interests me the most. And I click on it, and nothing is happening.
Okay. So when you click onto it, because this is a prototype,
Right.
and normally it's just really paper. When you click onto it, the hotspot is not as big as precise.
Yeah.
So that's the next action that you will see. Describe to me what your initial impression of what you see there happening.
So when I clicked on the state and it didn't come up, it was kind of frustrating.
Okay.
So now you've clicked on it and you've brought up an icon that says 1, 2, 3. So I assume now that I'm supposed to click on that because of where it's looking.
Okay. Because this is not completely functioning, kind of thing. So the idea is when you select the state,
Mm-hmm.
the list of recall for that state will update. Of course, we don't have that update, but let me give you a little bit of background to supplement what is being built right now. So when you select the state of Virginia, this list here will update of all the recalls pertaining to the state of Virginia. Now, with that piece of information in mind, I want you to kind of rethink about, the experience at that time.
So I think you're going to want the caption on that list to say food recall description
Mm-hmm.
for your designated state
Okay.
or for the state you selected. Because that list was already up there
Right.
on the screen. It wasn't clear to me that it's different by state.
Perfect. Good. What does that circle and 123 represent to you?
I mean, it doesn't represent anything other than a button maybe that I'm supposed to push.
Okay.
Or maybe there's 123 recalls in the state of Virginia.
Was that clear?
No.
Okay.
It's also a highway number in Virginia.
Now, if you look at the recall, the next scenario would be that I didn't put in here is that I want you to maybe select one of the recall that's listed
Okay.
in the state of Virginia.
So I'll pick the one with the most severity.
Okay.
Okay. So I have information about it.
Okay.
So this is a way out of the box comment. What I'd really like to be able to do is take my phone and scan the barcode on the product and know whether it's been recalled or not.
Why would you do that?
Because it will provide instant feedback, like in a store, of what a price is. I don't have to scan a whole list of items to see whether something I'm going to buy is among the 123 items on the list. I guess the other option is to manually put in the UPC code, but we all use barcode scanners now, so that would make it a lot simpler.
Okay. And was it intuitive for you when you select the recall? The content shows up there that there was a relationship between what you selected
Yes.
and what the information displayed.
Yeah.
Does the information displayed to you make any sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the next thing is that I want you to look at the remainder of the app, look at all the other extraneous information, and explain to me what you think those are.
So the Twitter feeds, I'm not a Twitter user, so I'm not normally going to gravitate to that. To me, it's just what people are saying about FDA recalls.
Okay.
But also the font is too small.
Okay.
So I guess that's just a sample screen. So that's the follow FDA thing is pretty intuitive.
In terms of content, do you find it to be useful or maybe even related to the subject that we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, there probably are people who would want email updates, or I don't know about RSS feeds from the FDA.
Okay.
Like, I personally wouldn't choose to follow their photo stream on Flickr.
Okay.
But there may be people who would use these features, and so I think that's not bad.
Okay. Explain to me what the interface is below the list right here.
So I have no idea what that is.
Okay.
So in studying it, it gives me the date range for the recall, it looks like.
Okay. Is that something that you think would be helpful for you?
It would
or-
be helpful higher up, although you already said first quarter or 1 quarter in the list here somewhere. Recall reporting date is 5/20. This must be maybe the production dates. That's not clear.
This is great.
So that conflicts. One says March and one says May. You might, because that's such a small feature, you might even want to put it at the top.
Okay.
If people think that it's significant,
Mm-hmm.
like if I had bought this product in January, it would be useful for me to know that it was really items produced between March and June.
Okay.
But that, what's depicted on the graph is not clear.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and go back to. Can you go back to the main to the map? Great. So this is like basically the main interface, and we're in the very early stage of conceptualizing this. So far, from what you see, what you like and what you dislike about the app so far.
I like the map.
That's intuitive for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
The date range, I guess, lets the consumer put in. That's not clear to me. Like, can I adjust this?
It's a mock-up. It's just a drawing. We have some things that are drawings, some things that are like we try to mock up functionally. So the idea is that you can choose. Well, I don't want to lead you too much, but what do you think right here means that you can?
Well, you can limit the range
Okay.
from a week to a year.
Mm-hmm. And is this slider here intuitive for you in terms of like as a metaphor for date ranges?
I don't think it's necessary. I think if you've clicked a box,
Mm-hmm.
so I guess that it shows you that it's current.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anyway, it's not intuitive.
Okay, so is that what you dislike about the app? Is the time range? Or if it's just being used in a different way, that it would be better?
I just feel like this bar graph is redundant to the boxes that you check right above it.
Okay. Okay. Good.
And on the food recall description list, if there are 123 items in the state of Virginia, this only lists 5. So
This would be a scrollable list. Well, it's just not on the
are you going to list them alphabetically, or are you going to rank the highest ones first?
It would be by dates of the recalls, and then
So you might want to have a column in that table for date of recall. Even though it appears in your sublist when you pull it up, it wasn't clear to me why you listed them in the order that you listed them.
okay.
Because it looks like you've put the highest one first and the lowest one's last.
Okay, good feedback. All right. Are there anything else that you dislike about the application? No.
I would like to see a longer recall list, and maybe move the Twitter feed down, because this is a little bit lopsided. Like, you could put the Twitter stuff over here and balance out the page.
Okay. So it's not as
I think
as
it's
high
just
a
less
priority
important,
for you.
right?
Yeah, gotcha. So if these changes were made and, in a real world situation, conceptually, would this be a useful app for you as a consumer to get feedback, recall this?
So, as a mother of 2, right, I shop regularly, and my assumption is always that the store will have taken off the shelf items for which there's a recall.
Okay. So you're relying on the provider, the stores to do that automatically.
I am.
Okay.
And I'm certainly not going to go down the aisle and see which of the items in my shopping cart, if they've potentially been recalled, unless there's, a spate of illnesses in my neighborhood that people are associating with food poisoning or whatever.
Okay.
If there were a barcode scanner, it would be simple as you put stuff into your cart to just scan it and maybe see, when it was produced. You want to buy the freshest one.
But you wouldn't use this app on a day-to-day basis or anything like that?
I'm a busy working mom, and I can't see myself taking the time to do that.
Okay. What if this app gives you an alert based on if you had registered to the site, that was the intention. When there is a high-level alert in your area, you get a text or an email alerting you of the food source contamination that may or may not have been pulled from the shelf. Would that be an interest to you?
That would be of interest to me. Of more interest to me would be the store has an itemized list of everything that I've bought when I check out.
Right.
So if there would be a way for that to generate a notification, it knows that I bought 32-ounce things of Gatorade, fruit flavored, last Wednesday.
But that's dependent on the store doing its job
of connecting
with you as a consumer to that store to do that.
Well, it also makes them look bad if they didn't pull it off the shelf.
Okay. I don't think that's the intent of the app, is from the store, to the consumer.
Yeah.
So although in an ideal situation we would all want that, but okay, great.
So I don't think you're going to get mass usership from the working mom population. You know, there may be stay-at-home moms who are super focused on these kinds of things. I personally don't have the time to go through a recall list every time I go to the store.
Okay. If the intent of the app is to give you warnings when there is, think of it that way. So we understand that you're busy and you're not going to check every time. But let's say this actually happened. EB Eggs had a massive recall recently that was basically in every single Costco, as well as I think Giant and so forth. Usually you find out in CNN.
Right, yeah, you hear it on the local news, right. So even if this could notify the local news.
Right, and so it could be a local news source, or, you know, at the same time that it reached the local news source, it's also reaching you on a mobile phone. So sometimes you don't watch CNN, things like that. That's sort of like the intent that we're going with this. If you had signed up to be a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, then you're just basically going to have to check in, right? Those kind of things. So if you are a subscriber, if you go down that route, the automation of getting an alert on a recall, would that change your mind in terms of the usability, of the usefulness of the app, or you would still ignore or not sign up for it?
So I mean, it's a really personal thing, but I subscribe to as few things as possible.
Sure.
I try to keep my online profile pretty low.
Okay.
And so I probably would not sign up for it.
Okay.
But I'm sure I'm in the minority.
Okay. So you're one user type, that is that user type, and then there is another user type that does everything online because they're social media kind of savvy, right? So it's just a matter of us
it's
looking at
not an issue of savvy, it's an issue of privacy.
Yeah. So not savvy, but you know, so we actually have to talk to several more people of that persona and different user type. Just because you're a mom doesn't fit you neatly into that kind of user usage kind of a thing. Let's see. What other content that we can add to this app that you think would make it more useful to you?
Pictures of products.
Photos of the products?
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe when I click on this berry nut mix, trail mix thing, maybe right up here at the top have a picture of the packaging.
Yeah, okay.
That you could zoom in on.
Okay.
There's also, maybe this is the UPC code. Sometimes there are packages in a certain range of numbers that are recalled.
Right. Yeah, like this lot or things like that.
Right. So I don't see anything like that.
Okay, great. And I think you already answered this one. Would you use this app if it's available publicly? And your answer for your habit is you probably won't.
Probably not.
Okay.
But it's not that it's not well designed. It's just I choose not to subscribe to a lot of stuff.
Well, that's good. Thank you for your feedback. Just to kind of give you an idea of how we explore these things is that we are limited by the data set that we can use when we're building this application. So it's not like it's great to hear you mention a lot of things that we talked about, which is basically this is also a mobile app. It's actually response to to be on the phone too as well. So we thought very carefully, and one of our biggest strategic move was to build it so that way you can use a barcode scanner. Because as you said, what would be really cool was that I'm not looking for information. Information comes from me. Warning, warning, warning. And when I do go to find eggs, I'm not sure if it's EB or whatever it is, I can just scan it and it shows up as, yes, this is being pulled, or no, this is safe. So the barcode is something that we want to integrate into this app. We run into a couple problems. We don't have enough time to build something like that. And then two is that the data set that are coming back from the FDA is incomplete. So the UPC code, although we have UPC code, it's not accurate or the kind of data that would actually result back in some sort of useful information of like what store it's in and what location and so forth like that. But,
So there's
yeah.
another thing that's missing here, and that is, what if I have 3 of those sitting in my pantry? What's the procedure for returning it, getting my money back, getting a new one, whatever?
Right.
What's my recourse?
Right. We thought about some of the what we call it remediation, and the original design. We don't have to go through it, but actually have triage centers based on your geolocations. Based if you had signed up, you say I live in Loudoun County, Virginia. Unfortunately, the data that we're working with don't go down to street level. And so with the street level, the app concept was to have not only that you pulled up where you live, but based on the type of recall, what are the recommendations from RSS from FDA? They do send those out. Would be for that particular recall. If it's really high severity, it would be for you need to go see emergency room. Here are the hospital that's near you. So we want to be very location-based kind of product. But we have to actually start trimming back a lot of features and function only because of the time. Because we actually have to build a working app rather than just a concept only.
You can always do upgraded versions of it.
Yes, that's what we want to do is much more robust. And we're kind of balancing between following the requirements versus, high in the sky, right? And so that's where we are. But it's good to know that a lot of your feedback were things that we have discussed, but you had some also surprising the information that we're going to implement right away. Things like the timeline. It doesn't make sense being down there. Initially during the wireframe it did, but we moved content around. But after we moved the content around this morning, the location and timeline didn't make that change, as well as some other recommendation too as well. Okay. Well,
it's really interesting.
Thank you very much. But this is such a small slice into what a usability test is. But unfortunately, we just don't have enough time to do a robust one. But as you can see through this process, it's this kind of iterativeness. We go back and we make the changes. We can go back and look at different, same persona, but different user type in that persona.
Right.
And then we keep going down and see, are we hitting the mark? And if everybody keeps saying UPC code, then we got to start listening to our users and things like that. And even though the data is not in there, being captured by the FDA, we actually now have to go back to the FDA and recommend them, hey, got to be able to parse out this data better so that way, user can use the information. Otherwise, it's just useless information for a lot of people. This kind of thing.
Well, call me again if you need my help.
I will. Yeah, no, I love different perspective because sometimes we're drawn into a room and we start to do groupthink.
Also, we just start looking at how do I code this?
Yeah.
And that's. Go ahead.
So what's going to go on the scrolling bar tab? Is that just is it a warning based on the API response data?
Yes, that's basically the initial idea, but then we have some rules around what can be shown. So the FDA actually said you cannot create warnings based on the data, the actual recall data that's coming back. We're like, well, what do we use? So we're still kind of ironing that out.
So I was curious, if you go back to the map, one thought I had, because it seemed like, you're drawn right to the map, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if you have the click which shows the number based on the, do all states have active recalls going on right now or at any given time? Or?
Believe it or not, a lot of states do. And the other challenge that we found out through the data set is that they always stay open.
For a long time?
They actually never close. So after a while, as you can see, you can have red dots everywhere, right? Because so
there's no way you can code it to draw your attention somewhere or anything like that.
And so we're trying to come up even with our own rules about this, and by doing that, we're breaking the proposal rules, if you will, and we're gonna go outside. So there was a lot of stepping. That was Greg Feister, who's actually my proxy client. So we had to discuss with him, what are the rules associated with a recall, because they're all open back to 2012. And so they all can't be high alert. And so what's the rule? Is it the last week, last 2 weeks, last 2 months? Because some of these things don't get closed. They're still being recalled. And
so is that slider at the bottom, is that just like the date that it was, the recall was initiated then?
well, that's just a filter in a sense that you just want to see the last month.
So I think you set, it took me a long time to realize that you set the date range on
Yeah,
that
you set
bar.
the-
Yeah, you
Yeah,
set
use
the
it.
date range for what you want to see, but is that any recalls that were opened in that time span?
That's right.
So
In-
it's-
in
it's
your
not-
state.
So it's not all active, because all active would go back to, right, like if I said, what are all the active recalls in the last, like, that are open in the last month, you go all the way back to 2012, because everything's still open?
No, just in the last month.
So it's just new ones that were open? in
Right,
that
and
time.
the idea is that if you choose the state of Virginia and then use the timeline, it's just going to filter just that information, and we have to back it up from a data perspective that we can
Yeah.
do that. Now, when you're a user and you decline to be agnostic, you're not associated with a state or anything like that, then you can look at all of the data sets and things like that too as well. But you got to look at all of the information. But once you start selecting your locale, then we start to trim down the data sets to be more specific to your area.
Okay. I was just thinking, because like food recall date range,
Mm-hmm.
like some